So, hello there. I'm back here with another video. In this case, talking about the continuation of what we saw in the previous video. That is actually the last thing I have done with this army. But for the series of videos I'm making, this is the continuation of the Gondor project. I want to start pretty much chronologically if possible. I think that will be the best solution. Because the last thing I showed you was the last thing I made, which is the warband that I still have here for Aragorn and stuff. I'm very happy about it. I said it already. I showed you already my Aragorn, the proxied one. I showed you my Boromir already. So if we go chronologically, if you remember, if you have seen the videos of fiefdoms, I bought a box of Gondor Rangers that half of them became Blackroot Vale Archers, the other half became these Arnor inspired Rangers that I can use as, I don't know, Grey Company and stuff. And with that box, I also bought the box of Minas Tirith Warriors. That, if I'm not mistaken, the ones I made are the ones I have in this tray. Yeah, because I have two trays that from my storage unit. My wife bought it for me for Christmas, not for my birthday, sorry. And I'm very happy with it. I am waiting for some magnets to magnetize the whole thing, but whatever. That I'm getting out of the actual what I should be doing. So I'm gonna show you here. These are the first guys of Minas Tirith I had. And I made in a long time. Like, I bought them. Yeah, now I see that they're actually mixed up because, yeah, I have most of the archers in the other one. But whatever, I'll show you in the shots of all of them together by different units. Let's put it that way. I'll show you a group of guys with spears. I'll show you a group of archers and a group of swordsmen, I assume. Now I just want to go over some particular cases. For example, the first ones I made, I followed kind of like a very simple, like stick to the how the miniatures come in the box. Just make them like that, build them like that. But I did that for 12. Of course, we all know, if you have had Games Workshop miniatures from Middle-earth Savage Battle game, that once you get a 24 box of soldiers, the other 12 are gonna repeat themselves. And I don't know, I always thought that it was much nicer. As you can see here, I have a lot of Minas Tirith guys right now. I always thought it was much nicer if all of them were slightly different from each other, like poses, equipment and stuff, so they wouldn't just look like carbon copies. So for example, if I can find an example that I can explain easily. Yeah, so for example, this guy is just straight out of the box. Just slide it in there, painted him, whatever. But if I look through the guys I have here, let me see. Why cannot I find him? I'm missing a guy. Yeah, here. So if you see this guy, for example, the only thing I did is to change the angle of the bow, but it already makes them look a bit different. This guy I can show is a very nice case to see as well on how these work out. Because for example, this is the original. You see, striking pose with the sword, whatever. And then this guy, the only thing I did was a simple hand swap, give him a spear, and I gave his sword to another guy that had a spear before. So there was some conversions there that were very simple. For example, this guy just changed the angle of the sword to make it look different than the other ones that are in the same pose. Archers were a bit more complicated though, because for example, this guy I converted to be a captain with a cloak in green stuff, and you know, some details in gold in the cloak and stuff. So it will stand out a little, but the archers were a different case because for example, this guy, there's no real chance that you can make him look, you know, it's very hard that you can make him look like a person holding another wielding another gear. Sorry, I forgot how to speak Spanish. English. My God. Those ones took a bit more of work, but I can show you some examples because those conversions actually they took a bit more of. For example, this one, the only thing I did was to change a head of a ranger and put it on him. In this case, in the first time they repeated. I don't know if they repeated somewhere else. I think they did, didn't they? I should have another one of these. Because, of course, like when you look at army building, usually the ones that you're going to have the least of Gondor is archers of the soldiers. You're going to likely have more spears and you know, shields and stuff. So, for example, this guy that I also made, it was for Aragorn, and it has the cloak. So then it's different, even if it's the same pose. And I know I tilted the head a little bit, so the angle will be different. But for example, when it comes to other archers, this guy here gave him a very bright red head, and it's a ranger head that I gave him from a conversion. This guy has a name, he's John William. Why? Because we watch Outlander in my place, and he has red hair. Yeah, I don't know, don't ask, okay? But if I look at the other archers I converted from there, we have cases of guys that were not archers before, and now they don't look like archers at all. They took a bit more of conversion, if I'm honest with you. For example, this banner bearer, it was an archer. I put this spear with leftover Perry Miniatures pieces, I believe. I gave it a sword from the same box. And then I put him standing in one of the options of the Faramir from the Battle of Osgiliath. So he's standing on a log to make him look taller, which helps with the banner. I might, one of these days, maybe dare to make a freehand on the banner. I just made it with a piece of paper. But for example, to be a banner bearer for my Minas Tirith warriors, I think it looks pretty nice. And it comes from an archer. This guy too, I made him holding a spear and a shield that I recasted with green stuff. 2 new arms from Perry Miniatures. This was an archer. I removed a lot of pieces here and I had to try to re-sculpt it. And now he's just like, you know, covering himself with a spear over the shield. I think it looks okay for being one of the first conversions I made in a long time. Where else did I have another dude of this? Yeah, this guy. Gave him a spear instead of the bow. Give him a shield on the back, a sword in the hand. So it looks, you know, different pose, dynamic. Where else? Yeah, here, this guy too. Gave him another spear, shield on the floor, sword on the right hand. He was another archer. Tried to fix it as much as I could. It's a whole new right arm that comes from a Perry Miniatures Knight, as you can see here, but I think it looks quite well. And I think that's about it from those guys, isn't it? I think so. There is some guys here though. For example, these ones are just, you know, changing angles, changing hands, changing stuff like that. I'm just trying to eliminate the things that I've already showed you. So I don't, you know, you'll see them all together in the shots later, as I said. But I want to go through the more specific cases. This one, for example, I made a trumpeter with a trumpet from the Dol Amroth Knights on horse that I had left over. So I just basically was a simple arm swap. And I think it looks pretty well. Very easy to do. This conversion was not hard whatsoever. And then I have left here some guys on the left side of the camera. On the left side of me, for example. This is the Boromir on foot. I don't know if I showed it to you with the banner. I tried to freehand, but it doesn't look that bad, I think. What I'm more interested about showing you now is I had some leftover Perry Miniatures from the English army. They were mostly, you know, bodies of without armor. Some of them have armor, but most of them were without it, and they had just, you know, tabards and stuff. For example, this guy does have an armor and have a helmet and everything, two-handed sword, and on the back a Minas Tirith shield. So he will tie up with the army. This guy has a two-handed spear with another Minas Tirith cloned shield. So I made a bunch of guys like this, either with swords or with spears that are just, you know, looking a bit different, but they have something to tie them up to Gondor. So either I can use these guys as like a war band from a different city that went to help. For example, I don't know, it comes from Pelargir, or it comes from any other city in Gondor, and they just sent some soldiers, or just that they didn't have equipment for everybody. You know, you can just use them as normal soldiers. And then I made some others that are simply archers, painted in the Gondor scheme, which I think they also look quite nice. And they, once you blend them all together, they are the same army, you know. I like to think that these guys, like we said before, they come from a different place. They don't have all the full equipment that they might have in the city. So these guys are from the city, they have the money, they have, you know, this guy, for example, is a full-on knight, even though it's made with Perry miniatures. You can see that this guy has the money, has the whatever is necessary. But there's other guys from Gondor, from Minas Tirith, that they look like it. And then there's others that are going to look a bit more ragtag and normal, but with good gear. Just not as much as the others. I think it looks good. It breaks, kind of breaks with the whole, how you say it? It breaks the monotony, I will say. And I think it looks quite good. And then lastly, I don't know if I showed you this guy. I wanted to make a dude that will work as a king of men, if I wanted to run this army. And I also wanted him to work as a knight of the White Tower. So I made this guy with the crown, you see, the crowned helmet, drawing his sword out. It reminds me of the pose that the metal Faramir on armor used to have. At least I don't think they produce that one anymore, but I know that it was a pretty cool, pretty badass pose that he had. So this is the guy I made solely from Perry miniature bits, from the command sprue of the Foot Knights, if I'm not mistaken. And it looks very nice. It doesn't have any white trees or anything, but the color scheme is so, blends in so well with everybody else. I think it looks very cool, and I'm very happy with him. He's one of the guys that stands out the most for me, and just from being a regular guy coming from a plastic box to have such a imposing presence, I think it looks very nice. But as I said, as I always say, I'm gonna make some total shots now of these guys. I'm gonna probably group them in like guys with swords, guys with spears, guys with bows. You can see there, just to add some variety, that they don't look like copies of each other. There's some other, like for example, this guy has a shield, but I made him hold a spear two-handed because I had a two-handed spear. They just put the head of another Gondor one. And it looks good because if you look at the arm, his arm is like bent behind the shield. So it makes sense if there's another hand on the front that is holding it two-handed. I don't know, there's some conversions that are made for, you know, to make them look different. And yeah, as I was saying, I'll probably be showing the shots right now of how these guys turned out. I'm very happy with my teen dudes. They are the base of any Gondor army. I wanted to have plenty in case that, you know, so they look good in dioramas, or I want to make a battle of Minas Tirith Siege or Osgiliath, and I want to have a lot of them. And I want to have some to choose from. And I have fun painting Minas Tirith warriors. They might not seem like the most interesting thing to paint, but I'm honestly already planning on things to do, like what happens if I get more of these guys. Like I could make some units, like coming, as we said, with the guys with the Perry miniature pieces from other cities of Gondor or from other fiefdoms that we don't have profiles of. So we just make them Gondor warriors, but looking different. I'm planning on these things eventually. I know that I can always go back to a Minas Tirith box of warriors and have fun with them. I'm thinking also of maybe making 12 Osgiliath variants that they might not be that useful in the game, but I think they will look very nice, seeing that I have a lot of troops for a reclamation of Osgiliath army. I think it will be nice to have some veterans, and it will be a cool conversion experiment and project. I think I might try to do that on camera if I get to do it, so you can see the whole process, because these guys were, of course, converted, painted, and everything off camera because I wasn't recording then. But I might try to make a video of that if that ever happens. So you guys can let me know if you would like to see that. But yeah, again, second episode here. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna leave it, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers.